Imagine, for a moment, sitting in a quiet room. The afternoon sun warms the floorboards. There is no television on, no phone buzzing in your pocket. There is only the gentle hum of the house and the rhythm of your own breathing. In that stillness, think back across the sprawling landscape of your life, the triumphs and the heartaches, the loves and the losses, the long-forgotten conversations, and the moments that changed everything. What if the purpose of that entire journey was not to accumulate things or titles or even memories, but to arrive at a handful of simple, unshakable truths? Not the kind of knowledge you learn from a book, but the kind of wisdom that settles in the bones, a deep knowing that can only be earned through the living of many seasons. In this time we have together, we are going to explore 7 of those truths. These are the profound insights that often only reveal themselves after a lifetime of experience. They are the quiet answers to the loud questions we spend our youth asking. For many, understanding them is the final, most important work of a life well lived. It is the difference between growing old and growing wise. So I invite you to settle in. Let this be a space for reflection. The content you're about to experience isn't about quick fixes or easy answers. It's an invitation to connect with a deeper part of yourself. If these words resonate, I hope you will share them with those who might find comfort and clarity in them. Let us begin. Our modern world is obsessed with speed, with accumulation, with doing. We are taught from a young age that a successful life is a busy life, a full life. We fill our calendars, our homes, and our minds, believing that more will eventually equal happiness. But a lifetime of experience teaches us a different, more paradoxical lesson. It teaches us that true wisdom is not found in adding more, but in understanding what is essential. It is a process of letting go. The Buddhist tradition has a beautiful term for this: seeing things as they are, not as we wish they were, not as we fear they might be, but as they truly are. And this clear seeing, this gentle acceptance, is the foundation of a peaceful heart. The 7 truths we will explore are all facets of this one diamond-like insight. They are the discoveries we make when we finally stop struggling against the current of life and instead learn to navigate it with grace. Truth 1. The futility of resisting the river. Our first truth is perhaps the most fundamental, and the one we spend most of our lives fighting. You cannot stop the river from flowing, but you can learn to build a raft. This is the wisdom of impermanence. From the moment we are born, everything is in a constant state of flux. Our bodies change, relationships shift, fortunes rise and fall, and even the world we know transforms. Yet, so much of our human suffering comes from one single, exhausting effort, trying to hold on. We build dams of denial, trying to stop time. We cling to past glories, trying to relive what is gone. We grasp at fleeting moments of happiness, terrified they will end. Consider the story of Arthur, a brilliant architect. For 50 years, he designed magnificent buildings. His creations were monuments of steel and glass, designed to last for centuries. He was a master of control, of permanence. Every line was precise, every material chosen for its longevity. He found immense comfort in this. But his life outside of his blueprints was not so orderly. His children grew up and moved away, their lives messy and unpredictable. His own body, once strong and reliable, began to ache and slow down. He felt a rising tide of anxiety, a frustration that the world refused to conform to his designs. He would sit in his perfect minimalist home, surrounded by enduring objects, and feel a profound sense of unease. One afternoon, defeated, he walked down to a river near his home. He watched the water flow relentlessly downstream. It didn't fight the rocks in its path, it simply moved around them. It didn't mourn the bend it had just passed, it moved onward to the sea. It was powerful not because it was static, but because it was in constant, graceful motion. In that moment, Arthur understood. He had spent his life trying to make the world as solid as his buildings. He was trying to stop the river. He realized his task was never to control the flow, but to build a raft of acceptance, of resilience, of being present with what is. He couldn't stop his body from aging, but he could learn to care for it with kindness. He couldn't stop his children from living their own complex lives, but he could love them without condition. A lifetime of experience teaches us this. Our peace does not come from winning the fight against change. It comes from finally laying down our arms. It comes from realizing that security is not found in a fixed position, but in our ability to gracefully navigate the currents of life. Truth 2. The heaviest things we carry are our thoughts. The second truth is one we feel in our bodies, in the tightness of our shoulders and the weariness in our spirit. The past is a story we tell ourselves, and the future is a story we haven't written yet. The only weight is the one we choose to carry in this moment. The human mind is a magnificent tool, but it is also a relentless storyteller. It replays old grievances, second-guesses past decisions, and constructs elaborate scenarios of future catastrophes. We live our lives carrying the immense weight of 1,000 moments that no longer exist, and 1,000 more that may never come to be. There was a woman named Eleanor. Her husband had passed away a decade earlier. Her home was a museum to their life together. In her attic was a heavy wooden chest filled with his old letters, photographs, and keepsakes. Every few weeks, she would haul the heavy chest down, open it, and spend an entire afternoon lost in the past. She would feel the grief as if it were new, the anger at his illness, the regret over words left unsaid. Each time, she would close the lid, her heart heavy, and drag the chest back to the attic, feeling utterly exhausted. One day, her young granddaughter, who was only 7, tried to help her push the chest. The little girl strained with all her might, her face red with effort. "Grandma," she panted, "this box is too heavy. Why do we have to keep moving it?" The innocent question struck Eleanor like a bolt of lightning. She looked at the heavy chest and then at her own heart. She realized the wood and paper inside were not what was weighing her down. The weight was the story of regret, the story of what was lost, a story she forced herself to relive over and over again. The next day, she did something different. She brought the chest down, but this time she didn't just look. She took out one photograph, a picture of her and her husband laughing on a beach. She didn't dwell on the fact that he was gone. Instead, she allowed herself to feel the pure gratitude for the joy of that single, beautiful moment. Then, she put the photo in a small, simple frame on her bedside table. She did this with a few other items, placing them around her home, not as anchors to grief, but as gentle reminders of love. The rest of the items she carefully repacked and gave to her children. The empty chest she left in the attic. Her house suddenly felt lighter. She felt lighter. The past had not been erased, but its weight had been lifted. She had stopped carrying the whole library of sorrow and chosen to hold a single page of gratitude. A lifetime teaches us that our memories are not our masters. Our thoughts are not facts. They are clouds passing through the sky of our awareness. We can let them float by. Truth 3. Compassion begins when you see their scars. Our third truth is what transforms our relationships and dissolves the walls between us. Everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Judgment is a wall we build. Compassion is a door we open. When we are young, we tend to see the world in simple terms, as a collection of separate individuals. We judge people based on their surface actions, their brief words, their outward appearances. We create stories about them in our minds, and we react to the stories, not the person. But a life of experience, filled with our own hidden pains and private struggles, teaches us a deeper empathy. Let me tell you about Frank. Frank was a retired factory foreman who prided himself on being a no-nonsense man. He was gruff and easily irritated. His new next-door neighbor, a young man named Tom, drove him crazy. Tom played his music a little too loud, laughed a little too freely, and was, in Frank's opinion, annoyingly optimistic. Frank saw him as naive, a kid who hadn't seen the real world. He complained about him constantly. One winter morning, Frank was grumbling as he shoveled snow from his driveway. He saw Tom across the street, helping an elderly neighbor clear her walkway before even starting his own. Tom didn't do it with a show. He just did it quietly, then gave the woman a gentle smile and a wave. Later that week, another neighbor mentioned Tom in conversation. "It's so wonderful to see him smiling again," she said. Frank grunted. "What do you mean, again?" The neighbor's face softened. "Oh," she said quietly, "his wife passed away last year. Cancer. He moved here to start over." In that instant, the entire structure of Frank's judgment crumbled into dust. He wasn't looking at a naive kid anymore. He was looking at a young man carrying an immense, invisible burden who still found the grace to help a neighbor. He was looking at someone who chose light in the face of darkness. The loud music wasn't an annoyance. It was a defiant act of aliveness. The laughter wasn't naivety. It was courage. The next day, Frank baked a loaf of bread, something he hadn't done in years. He walked over to Tom's house, knocked on the door, and simply said, "Thought you might like this." That single act of compassion opened a door, and through that door, Frank began to see the whole world differently. He realized that behind every face is a story of love, loss, fear, and courage. A lifetime of experience teaches us to stop reading the covers of books and to respect the unturned pages within every person. It is the profound, humbling realization that our own secret sorrows are mirrored in the hearts of all. Truth 4. The loudest ambitions often lead to the quietest rooms. The fourth truth is a deep paradox, one that contradicts everything we are taught about success. The things we chase to feel important, fame, status, wealth, are often the very things that isolate us. True connection is found not in being looked up to, but in looking alongside. We spend decades striving. We climb ladders, build empires, and seek the approval of the crowd. We believe that if we can just get to the top, we will finally feel secure, loved, and whole. But as the years pass, many who reach that summit find it to be a cold and lonely place. Imagine a man named Richard, the CEO of a major corporation. His life was a testament to ambition. He lived in a sprawling mansion with a staff. His name was featured in magazines, and his schedule was managed to the minute. He had achieved everything he had ever set out to do. But in the evenings, after the meetings were over and the accolades had faded, he would walk through his silent, echoing home. He had an art collection he never truly saw, a library of books he never read, and a dining table that could seat 30, but where he almost always ate alone. His relationships were transactional, built around his power and status. He had countless acquaintances, but no real friends. He had mistaken respect for love and influence for connection. One day, a rare snowstorm brought his city to a standstill. His staff couldn't get to his house. He was trapped, alone. His power was useless against the weather. For the first time in 30 years, he had nowhere to be and no one to impress. He felt a profound, terrifying emptiness. He looked out the window and saw his neighbors, families he barely knew, helping each other dig out their cars. He heard their laughter carrying on the cold air. They were sharing shovels, coffee, and stories. They were a community, and he was an observer, separated by a fortress of his own making. On an impulse he hadn't felt since he was a boy, he put on his old coat, found a shovel in his cavernous garage, and walked outside. He started clearing the sidewalk for his elderly neighbor. She didn't know he was a CEO. She just knew him as Richard, the man who was helping her. They worked in silence for a while, and then she offered him a cup of hot chocolate. Sitting in her small, cluttered kitchen, sipping chocolate that was a little too sweet, Richard felt a warmth he hadn't experienced in years. It wasn't the warmth of success. It was the warmth of simple human connection. It was the feeling of being a person among people. A lifetime of experience eventually teaches us that the ego is a hungry ghost, impossible to satisfy. True contentment is found in the moments of service, of shared humanity, when we forget to be important and remember, simply, to be present and kind. Truth 5. Silence is not empty, it is full of answers. The fifth truth is a quiet rebellion against the noise of the modern world. We are addicted to distraction because we are afraid of what we will find in the silence. But it is in that silence that our own true voice finally speaks. Think of how we live. The moment we are alone, we reach for a device. We fill our cars with podcasts, our homes with television, our minds with endless chatter. We have become masters of avoiding ourselves. The silence feels empty, lonely, even terrifying. But what if it isn't empty? What if it's simply uncluttered? There was a woman, Mary, whose life was a whirlwind of activity. After her children left home, she filled the void with volunteering, social clubs, and a constant stream of news and talk radio. She was always busy, always informed, always surrounded by noise. Her friends admired her energy, but secretly, Mary was running. She was running from a quiet grief she had never processed, a subtle loneliness she refused to acknowledge. A winter flu forced her to a halt. For a week, she was too weak to do anything but lie in bed. The television gave her a headache. The radio felt grating. For the first time in years, she was surrounded by silence, and it was deafening. On the first day, the silence was filled with anxiety. A torrent of worries, regrets, and fears rushed into the empty space. It was overwhelming. She almost turned on the TV just to drown it out, but she was too tired. She just lay there and let the storm rage in her mind. On the second day, the storm began to quiet. The thoughts were still there, but they had less power. She began to notice other things: the pattern of light on the ceiling, the sound of a bird outside her window, the feeling of her own heartbeat. By the third day, something remarkable happened. Beneath the layer of anxious thoughts, another voice emerged. It was a quiet, calm, knowing voice. Her own intuition. It wasn't shouting, it was whispering. It whispered that she was lonely and that it was okay to admit it. It whispered that she didn't need to be busy to have value. It whispered that the grief she was running from just wanted to be felt and then released. When Mary recovered from the flu, she did not return to her old life. She kept her volunteering, but she also scheduled time for silence. She would sit with her morning coffee and just listen to the house, listen to her heart. She realized the silence was not an emptiness to be feared, but a sanctuary to be cherished. It was where she finally met herself again. A lifetime teaches us that the answers to our deepest questions are rarely found in the noise outside. They are waiting for us in the stillness within. We just have to be brave enough to turn down the volume and listen. Truth 6. Your legacy is not a monument. It is a garden. The sixth truth redefines our understanding of what it means to leave a mark on the world. We spend our lives trying to build a legacy of stone, something permanent and grand. But a true legacy is a living thing, planted in the hearts of others through small, daily acts of love. The idea of legacy can be a heavy burden. We feel a pressure to be remembered for something great, a career, an invention, a fortune. We think of our legacy as the final summary of our life, an inscription on a monument. But a lifetime of watching things grow and fade teaches us that this view is profoundly flawed. David was a man obsessed with his legacy. A successful lawyer, he had worked tirelessly to build a small fortune. His goal was to leave a significant inheritance for his grandchildren, to have a university building named after him. He saw these as tangible, enduring proofs of a life well lived. In his pursuit, however, he missed things. He was often too busy for long conversations with his son. He was too preoccupied to get down on the floor and play with his young granddaughter, Clara. He would tell himself, "This is for them. One day they will understand." When he retired, he had the money and the accolades. But he felt a strange disconnect from the very people he had done it all for. One spring afternoon, he found Clara in the backyard, trying to plant a small wilted flower in the hard soil. She was struggling, her face a mask of frustration. David, feeling a pull he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years, went outside. He didn't offer advice from the porch. He knelt down beside her, his expensive trousers getting stained with dirt. He showed her how to loosen the soil, how to make a space for the roots, how to water it gently. They spent the whole afternoon like that, transforming a small, neglected patch of earth into a tiny garden. They didn't talk about his career or his investments. They talked about worms and the color of petals and how the sun felt on their skin. For the first time, David wasn't a benefactor bestowing a future gift. He was a grandfather sharing a present moment. As the seasons passed, that small garden became their ritual, and David realized something profound. His legacy wouldn't be the number in a bank account. It would be the memory of his hands in the earth next to hers. It would be her knowledge of how to care for a living thing. It would be the love that was nurtured in those quiet, sunlit afternoons. A monument can crumble. A name on a building can be forgotten. But the love and wisdom we plant in the heart of another person is a living legacy. It grows, it blossoms, and it scatters its seeds in ways we can never predict. A lifetime teaches us to stop building monuments and to start planting gardens. And this brings us to the final, and perhaps most liberating truth of all. It is the culmination of the other six, the key that unlocks the door to a truly profound peace. It is this: you are not the character in the story of your life. You are the loving awareness that is watching the story unfold. This is a subtle but life-altering shift in perspective. Throughout our lives, we are fused with our own personal drama. We are the anxious thoughts. We are the aging body. We are the sum of our successes and failures. We are the main character, the hero of our own tale, struggling and striving, and it is exhausting. But after a lifetime of experience, after watching countless emotions, thoughts, and life circumstances come and go like weather, a different possibility emerges. Think of it this way: the sky is not affected by the clouds that pass through it. A storm may rage, but the sky remains vast, open, and untouched. The ocean is not defined by the waves that rise and fall on its surface. The waves are a temporary expression of the ocean, but the ocean itself is deep, calm, and enduring. What if you are the sky, and your thoughts, emotions, and life events are just the clouds? What if you are the ocean, and your moments of joy and sorrow are just the waves? This is not just a poetic idea, it is a direct experience. It is the quiet space you can find behind your thoughts, the calm center in the midst of a storm. When you can rest in this awareness, everything changes. You stop taking your thoughts so personally. You can feel sadness without becoming sadness. You can experience pain without becoming your pain. You can watch the drama of your life with a sense of compassion and even gentle curiosity, rather than desperate attachment. This is the ultimate freedom. It is the wisdom that understands that your true nature is not your name, your history, or your body. Your true nature is the silent, peaceful presence that has been with you since your very first breath and will be there with your last. It is the part of you that has quietly witnessed every single moment of your existence. These 7 truths are not destinations to be reached, but paths to be walked. They are not beliefs to be memorized, but insights to be lived. They are the gifts of a long life, the pearls of wisdom formed around the grit of experience. So the invitation is this: don't just listen to these words. Feel them. Where do they resonate in the story of your own life? Which truth is calling for your attention right now? The journey is not over. The opportunity to see with clear eyes and a peaceful heart is present in every moment. We live in a world that worships the cleverness of youth, but so often overlooks the profound wisdom of age. Yet, this wisdom is the world's most precious, renewable resource. It is the antidote to the frantic, shallow nature of our times. If this reflection has stirred something in you, please share your own insights in the dialogue below. What is a truth that your life has taught you? Your story has value, your wisdom is needed. By sharing it, you help plant a garden for those who will walk the path after you. Thank you for sharing this quiet time. May you walk with a peaceful heart. May you see with clear eyes, and may you find the boundless peace that has been waiting for you all along.